Whoa, I did not expect to be making this video again, but here we are. Some of you may have seen my previous Avowed video though, and are wondering why are we talking about it all again? Well, let's just say some of you peeps didn't like the way I did things, so we're gonna try it all again. But Avowed, a new fantasy RPG coming out of Obsidian and Xbox. It looks absolutely beautiful, unique, and possibly like the next New Vegas of the fantasy genre, but enough of all this. It took us a whole other video to get here, and I just want to get into everything we know so far about Avowed. Okay, yeah, that last video had a lot of jokes, and to be honest, I did miss a whole lot, and I felt kind of stupid after rewatching that video, but what is Avowed and why am I so freaking excited for it all? Well, as I said before, Avowed is an upcoming medieval fantasy game being developed by Obsidian Entertainment and being published by Xbox Game Studios. And as you can probably tell with being published by Xbox, this will be an Xbox/PC exclusive and a Game Pass release, and we should actually be seeing the game's release within sometime this year, 2024, but this game has been on my radar for the past few years now, actually. Seeing the first trailer when it dropped, I was instantly hyped up for it. I mean, knowing that it is set in a fantasy realm, which is some of the best settings for gaming in general, along with the fact that Obsidian is the company behind it, I was quick to expect some awesome things. But watching the trailers, it looked like we'll be getting something closer to Oblivion, Baldur's Gate, and Fable, with bright colors and huge environments with beautiful atmospheres. Along with this, the graphics are looking great in general, at least in the trailers. The colors are popping, the effects look clean and unique, armor and weapons have great detail. I don't know, just look at it for yourself and tell me those graphics aren't looking
nice.
But now that you know what Avowed is, I want to actually go into what we should expect with this Elder Scrolls Baldur's Gate baby. Speaking of babies, that actually brings me to the next topic of the day, that being the fact that Avowed actually branches off another series of Obsidian games, and also being the reason I feel so stupid about last week's video.
Come on. Stupid! No, we're gonna get. We'll try you off.
Very dumb.
Stupid!
But yeah, I got a comment on that video mentioning that Avowed is actually based on another Obsidian series called Pillars of Eternity. And after knowing nothing and then looking into that game series, I instantly knew I made a mistake with that video.
I immediately regret this decision.
But Pillars of Eternity is another Obsidian game, I keep saying that, also based on the world of Eora, being a previous baseline lore for Avowed. There were two games in the series, both being isometric RPGs, similar to Baldur's Gate, actually being Obsidian's own spiritual successor before Baldur's Gate 3, but the first game was released in 2015 and got a sequel, Deadfire, that was released in 2018. Both games took place on Eora, the world in Avowed, and both had references to Idir and the Living Lands, which are both referenced in the Avowed trailers. I won't get into the story of those games right now though, as they probably won't have much of a connection seeing the difference in gameplay, and mainly because the writer of both of the Pillars of Eternity games is not in any way connected to Avowed that I can find at least. But the story of those games are actually really interesting, as the protagonists are watchers, able to see into different times in the past and future, and able to see like spirits and the dead, and they're from the lands of Deerwood, where babies without souls are being born called Hollowborn, and it's just a whole thing in those two games, but this is not a video about Pillars of Eternity, so I will just leave that there. Now though, getting to the juice of the trailer, that being the gameplay that we've seen and everything it has to offer. But first, let me hit you with a quick interjection. If you are enjoying this video and you want to see me play Avowed when it first gets released, be sure to hit this video with a like and slap that subscribe button to stay up to date. But finally getting to the gameplay, first I want to get to how the game seems like it will play. Now, this might not seem like something to look into for a lot of you, as most games play exactly the same, though there are those games like Kingdom Come Deliverance which change up nowadays fantasy norms. Now, Avowed definitely doesn't look as in-depth as Kingdom Come, but honestly, it looks like we won't be getting the usual run around and swing routine, admittedly akin to games like Skyrim and such, though I will say that the combat and magic systems do look a lot more advanced than some other games, along with having its own little twist to it. Honestly, the combat looks pretty fluid, but realistic-ish at the same time, like swinging your blade into enemies might get stuck in them, or freezing a person and hitting them will, smash them into bits, but what I mean, I guess, is that there seems to be pretty nice combat physics based on the bit of combat gameplay that we've seen, though never trust trailers is what I've learned, but we can also see the magic system in action, which I think steals the show. The magic straight up looks like something out of Doctor Strange. Every spell has its own sort of like jutsu behind its cast, and each one seems to be unique. On top of that, each spell has its own animation, mechanic, and they're full of color and detail. Another thing I guess reminded me of Elder Scrolls 2 would have to be what seems to be the ability to dual wield weapons and spells, or throw some type of void balls while still swinging away. One great thing we get to see, and something I think more games need, is the ability to kick while fighting. Someone getting a little too close? Give them a kick. Is someone too close to the edge of a cliff? Give them a kick. And hopefully we even get to kick in doors. I like games that let you kick the door in, but a lot of games that have kicking just don't have that. Whatever, but we'll have to wait and see on that. We also see another unique combat aspect that I have seen before, but we don't see enough in fantasy games, and that is spellbooks as weapons, like getting to pull out a spellbook and throw some magic from it. I just think it needs to happen more often, and I'm excited to see how Obsidian executes it in Avowed. We only see it in games like Baldur's Gate or Pillars of Eternity, but it will be cool to see how it works in first person. Then the last thing I want to bring up though, in focus, is the use of pistols. We see that we will be able to use guns, and luckily I'm not talking about your knights in armor being strapped up with Glocks and ARs, but we have what looks like, flintlock old style pistols, which I can be a little more forgiving about. There are not a lot of games that go for the classic fantasy aspect, but then also add firearms. I do know a good few, but a lot of them either didn't turn out well, or the guns were just one of the worst mechanics. This, again though, is just something we'll need to wait and see with. The rest of the gameplay though looks like your average first-person fantasy RPG, bustling ports, alien-ish creature companions, sprawling meadows and spiraling dungeons, spooky spiders and scary bears, lizard people. Wait a minute, are we sure this isn't the Elder Scrolls 6? No, okay, I'm just kidding, I know that made a lot of people mad in the last video, I'm sorry, but...
Sorry.
Yeah, we get to see some great landscapes, we see some great looking gameplay, and some really spectacular graphics. And speaking of graphics, I think I've talked about gameplay long enough, and I will just have to wait to play the game to give my final thoughts on that side of things. But, onto the graphics, something we can get a more definite opinion on, with first looks, even though things are going to change. This is just development footage, it might get better, it might be worse, who knows, but especially since we've gotten gameplay and in-game footage trailers, that's why I say, I think we can get a good first opinion, and my first opinion is, things are looking, as I said,
nice.
But even with the graphics aside, I have to say that it looks like they did a really good job overall. The character models that we see are really detailed and surprisingly not too cartoony, or as I say, Clayface. But things are actually looking pretty good feature-wise, and, with the landscape, even with some of the characters, this game has a big Pillars of Eternity and even Baldur's Gate vibe to the style and graphics. And I know I shouldn't be comparing it to different games, but honestly, we don't have it yet. We have no idea what to expect, so might as well compare it to what we do know. That being said, though, they definitely have their own unique world in the works. The locations we see are packed with different details, be it towering trees and foliage, or huge mountains covered in rocks and mushrooms, and as I said, it looks like it was all detailed and just done really well. And I do just keep repeating myself because there's not much more to say other than the graphics look good. If I would have to say a certain art style I think they chose, it would have to be realistic fantasy, meaning the colors are popping extra hard where there are colors, yet shading and lighting, and along with overall textures and everything, they all have a realistic tone and vibe to it. And on the topic of the world, from leaks and the Steam page, we know that it is connected to Pillars of Eternity, where we will be on the world of Eora, and we will be exploring the Living Lands, and possibly even Adir, or Adir, I think it's Adir. And according to the certain insiders, the world will be fully open, and in their words, not mine, it will be much larger than Skyrim. But we will also apparently be getting real-time weather, dynamic dialogue, freedom of choice, and modding support, which is pretty awesome to hear. Sounds like the world of Eora will be pretty fun to explore and will keep us occupied for a while, but Other than that, there is nothing else I have to say about the graphics. You know, you can look at it for yourself, look at the trailers, and maybe when the game releases, we'll see if then there are any unique graphical features or anything like that. But for now, I want to shift things over to the story side of things and see if we can't decipher what kind of quest we're going to be sent on. Right off the bat, honestly, the trailers do not show too much exposition or spoilers into what Avowed will be about, though through a few things we can see and hear, along with what we know from the Pillars of Eternity games, we do know where we are, and we do know what we might be getting into. Starting with the announcement trailer, it was more to show off the game than to show off any story, so we didn't get too much there, you know. We hear someone talking about war, and they mention a plague that's inflicting the living lands, that probably being the reason you're sent there. And then in the second trailer, we get a little more exposition. We seem to be stepping off a boat into a new land, you know, the living lands obviously, but we're instantly getting dirty looks, and suddenly someone swings their sword at us and the screen goes black. We then have a fishman named Kai telling us, well, people don't like us. He says that we were sent to the Living Lands by our emperor, who couldn't bother being there himself, and he tells us we were sent to investigate a plague inflicting the citizens of the Living Lands. It would only make sense that this is the monsters that you're tasked to fight in the first trailer, and that's the plague inflicting, you know. And, you know, broken oaths are mentioned in the first trailer. That's probably what brings on the plague, but then the fishman Kai says something interesting. He says that we scare the people of the Living Lands, and our powers and the way we fight scares them. He tells us that we are either there to save them or destroy them. This probably hints at the leaks of complete freedom we will have in the game, but hopefully there will be two sides of a storyline being able to choose to help or not. I at least sure as heck hope that's what the trailer is hinting at, because games like Fable, or there's a wildly different genre of game, but Infamous, they really do so much more for the player, giving them the option to be good or bad. And those choices really affected the storyline of those games, so I just hope Avowed is added to that list. It is also interesting that they say this as, does this mean magic is not normal in the Living Lands? As we've seen it before in other nations of Eora, although it just was usually brought on by like alchemy or supernatural effect or, you know, spells. So maybe not everywhere in Eora has magic, and maybe some places do, but yeah, I know this is not supposed to be the real world or anything, with some of the locations being fish people, wandering skeletons, but hey, maybe this is all part of this supposed plague. Your powers might be the reason you're sent there, only you can stop it. That's probably obvious, but then reading through some of the interviews, leaks, and the Steam page for the game, we get some more details explaining just what might be going on in the Living Lands. So we do know from Xbox Wire that the fishman talking to you is Kai, a coastal Amau, I am probably butchering that, but residing in the Living Lands, and they will be an available companion to the player. As shown in the trailer as well, we have been told that Kai is one of the few people who don't outright hate you, as most of the Living Lands will not be so friendly towards the player. Then on the Steam page we can actually get a bit of explanation. So we are the envoy of Adir, another place referenced and seen in Pillars of Eternity, and another name that I'm probably butchering. But the player is sent to investigate a plague affecting the people and animals of the Living Lands, much like the Hollowborn disease from the first Pillars of Eternity, although you will discover much more on your journeys. And then the Steam page tells us that the player has a personal connection to the Living Lands, along with an ancient secret threatening to destroy everything, whatever that means. And from what we can see and read, Avowed's Living Lands is a wondrous place, feeling foreign yet intristic at times, whatever intristic means. I'm probably stupid, but the lands are seeming to call for your help. And this game's Living Lands will be an island with different environments, landscapes, and even whole ecosystems, as I said before, but we are told in the Steam page that upon arriving to the Living Lands with your powers, do you save the island along with yourself and your secret, or will that ancient secret tear everything asunder? And yeah, that's about all we know so far. I mean, sure, there's probably a bunch that I am missing out on, be it from other leaks and different things across the webs, along with a bunch of stuff I probably missed out on in the Pillars of Eternity games, even if I'm playing now just to catch up. But honestly, I know all I need to know to be absolutely hyped for this game. It's being developed by Obsidian. It's following an already awesome world that they created. And come on, things are just looking good. And yeah, I don't want to get my hopes up, I've done that enough with games, but this game is sounding like the next Witcher or like even Oblivion. and I have been aching for a new fantasy game that I haven't played a million times, and I don't have to try a million times just to play. No hate at the Soul series, I mean, they are seriously spectacular games. They just bring out a side of me that I don't like. But yeah, I will address now too that the video I made before on Avowed, I was just excited for the game and I rushed out that video without looking deep enough and without doing my research. But shout out to that commenter for letting me know about Pillars of Eternity, and I hope this video is clearer, more concise, and, well, not as shite as some of you thought it was. Excuse my French.
Sorry.
But it apparently really was bad looking at some of the statistics. Really though, I am just super hyped for Avowed. I have been since that first announcement trailer in 2020, and after trying out the Pillars of Eternity games, I just hope that we get an awesome, beautiful, great storytelling, and free choice adventure game. And I will say that, no matter the ratings, no matter what people say, I will be playing this game, giving my full thoughts on everything when it releases this year at some point, even if I'm not happy with it. But I can only talk about something we don't have so much, so I think I'm just gonna wrap everything up there. If this video got you a little more excited for Avowed, or you just liked it in general, or it was better than last week's, let me know your thoughts in the comments now. And if you enjoyed, don't hesitate to hit that like button, and then head over that little red button to stay up to date on all of my new vids coming. And if you want to support more videos like this, get videos early, plus get your name at the end of every video, there's just no names yet, check out a membership to my YouTube now by pressing that little join button below. And lastly, if you heard any music that you enjoyed, check out BillyTheWhip on any music platform to bob your head to more of my home-cooked jams. And now that we're here, I thank you all so much for the continued support. I've been gone a couple weeks, it's hot, there's a bunch going on, and then I'm making bad video. It's a bunch of stuff. Thank you all for the support through it all, and I hope you all have a spectacular day.
But this a game, I'm the only one with the hunger. I feel like Thor dropping lightning along with the thunder. Call myself the kid, I know